anyway, I tied little pieces of white paper everywhere I found a drop of blood, so that when I got up there ways I could look back inside him and see exactly what it was on his and what he was doing. You know, I could look back and see these little white, oh, he did, yeah, so that's what I did there. And then those guys left, they had to go, and I continued till dark to do that. So anyway, so yeah, so then I came back the next day and I started by myself. They couldn't come, and I found more blood, and it kept getting less and less, and then right at the end, after he went around that last little clearing, it started going straight up the hill like that, and I concluded, maybe he wasn't too bad hurt. You know, all these bear hunters say, well, they'll typically go down and they'll try to get into the draw or near the creek, and sometimes right in the creek. And
he was obviously not the usual bear.
Yeah. And it wasn't a very lethal shot, evidently, is what I figured, you know.
Yeah.
But you would have thought so the way he rolled down there. I mean, it just looked like an old western where the guy shoots the guy off the rim rock and he falls, and you see him roll. And that's what it looked like, Steph.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. So, yeah, I continued to track it that all day that next day, and then it began to rain. And I was trying to beat, I knew the rain was coming. I'd heard the weather report, so I was trying to beat it. And it began to rain, and that pretty well, that made it real hard, because that rain, when it falls on a leaf or on something else, on some things it makes a little dark spot, and it just makes it so much harder, you know that. But anyway, so I had to give it, I went ahead and went till dark, but I mean I was getting quite a ways away, and so I said, well, hell, I'll pick this up tomorrow. So I came back, and I believe I called Richard up. I told him about that, told him what I was doing and this and that. Of course, he said, Rod, be careful out there. And I told him what I'd been doing and stuff. And I said, yeah, I parked down at the creek when I come up, and I run up. Rod, he said, that isn't too smart. Don't run at night up that, through there to Wilma's in the dark. They'll sometimes pick up on that type of activity. Don't do that. And you know, I had told Wilma that one time. I had told Wilma, the first one I shot at 5 o'clock, the big one that was just sitting there swaying like that, after I shot it in the chest and it did the St. Vitus Day, I told Wilma, I said, hey, you don't have to worry, Wilma, that bear won't be back. Rich also said, Rod, I wish, he has a nice way of saying things to me, instead of saying, Rod, you dumb shit, don't tell her a bunch of bullshit. I mean, he wasn't like my dad, he didn't say it like that. This is what he said, Rod, I really wish you wouldn't have told her that. That isn't true. So the next day I went up to Wilma, the next day after Rich told me that, I think he told me that the time before on the phone. I had to go up to Wilma and said, yeah, Wilma, you know, I told you the bear wouldn't be back. I'm full of shit. And she said, oh, what do you mean, Russell? I said, well, my brother told me I'm full of shit about that, that he might well be back because he will go back to the last place he got a good meal, and he really doesn't associate a human being with that injury that he may or may not have sustained and the noise. He just thinks it's a bad experience somewhere. And the food memory, the food, and when you're hungry this time of year, overpowers any other thing. If he's out there alive, he definitely will be back. So I said, yeah, my brother said, I'm full of shit. And Wilma said, Russell, did your brother really tell you that you're full of shit? I said, no, he has a nicer way of saying things. He's not like me. But because she had met Richard. See, Richard went and visited Wilma, and they hit it off pretty good, because she was a botanist, and she loves animals, and she lived in the jungle by herself, totally by herself in the middle of the jungle down around in the Amazons, and worked with the gorillas and chimps, and quite knowledgeable about animals. And Richard and her hit it off, had a nice long visit. And yeah, that's why she said, Russell, did he really say? Because she knew how polite he was. So